All right, a very good morning to everyone. Om Swastiastu. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Namo Buddhaya, salam sejahtera untuk kita semua, salam kebajikan. Hello everyone, a very good morning. It's really nice to see you guys all virtually. Let me introduce myself. My name is Mia. I'm the head of ASEAN and International Study Center at Universitas Pendidikan Nasional or Undiknas Denpasar, Bali. I'm so happy to see your face. I'm so happy to welcome all of these young leaders, youth from Indonesia and Australia in our event today, this virtual youth forum with the topic Youth Diplomacy, the role of youth in strengthening the bilateral cooperation between Indonesia and Australia. Thank you guys for joining our event today. And I'd like also to welcome the Director of Universitas Pendidikan Nasional, Bali. And today is represented by the head of Undiknas Study Center, Ibu Dr. Agung Tinigorda. Selamat pagi. Also, I would like to welcome all our honorable speakers. We have 4 speakers today. They are going to share information to all of us about the role of youth and also how can youth contribute in strengthening the bilateral cooperation between Indonesia and Australia. I would like to welcome the head of Division for International Partnership on Youth, Ministry of Youth and Sports of the Republic of Indonesia, Bapak Abri Eko Nurianto. Selamat pagi, Pak Abri.
Morning, selamat pagi.
Morning, thank you very much for joining us today from Jakarta, ya Pak?
From Jakarta, yes.
Jakarta. Okay, thank you so much. And also I'd like to welcome Kilau Setanggi Timur, President of Australia Indonesia Youth Association, Australia Capital Territory. Kilau or Anggi, good morning. Selamat pagi.
Selamat pagi.
Should I call you Kilau or should I call you Anggi?
Anggi is fine, thank you.
Anggi. Okay, Anggi. It's nice to see you virtually and to welcome you to Bali virtually as well. Thank you so much for being here and also you are going to share your experience as well and also your thought and perspective about our topic today. I'd like also to welcome Gusti Ayu Made Dwi Adi Susanti, Delegate of Indonesia for IAP 2015. Ayu Ade, Om Swastiastu.
Swastiastu. Morning, everyone.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Ayu Ade, for attending our event today, and also you will share your experience during your program, IAP program 2015, and also Greg Faley, Associate Professor and Senior Fellow, Australian National University, will be joining us later as our 4th speaker. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm so happy and I'm so glad that we can make this virtual youth forum amid the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic. We all can still share our perspective as young generation and also can give our written recommendation later. I'd like to also introduce Undiknas Study Center. We are celebrating the 1st anniversary of Undiknas Study Center in November 2020 because this study center was established in November 2019. This study center actually consists of 6 study centers. The first one is Center for Tourism Studies. Second one is Center for Engineering Studies. The third one is Center for Legal Studies, Center for Communication Studies, Center for Economic Studies, and also Center for ASEAN and International Studies. So today we are welcoming 277 participants from Indonesia and Australia joining us here on Google Meet and also on YouTube because the capacity of this Google Meet is only limited to 100 participants. So the rest of those participants are actually joining us via YouTube right now. And I'm so happy, and I would like to introduce also 2 students from Australia, delegates of Australia-Indonesia Youth Exchange Program 2020, who are currently doing their internship at the Center for ASEAN and International Studies Undiknas, Callum and also Sharmila. Hello, good morning, selamat pagi. Thank you. Actually, we organized this kind of event with the help of Callum and also Sharmila as well as part of their internship program in this Australia-Indonesia Youth Exchange Program 2020. So we are actually doing a collaboration, a real collaboration together between youth from Indonesia and also Australia. Later, after the presentation from 4 speakers, we are going to invite also 6 selected youth leaders from Australia and also from Indonesia to share their comments and also to share their recommendation. And at the end, we actually hope that we are going to compile all discussion into written recommendation from youth perspective. And we are going to share this recommendation to various stakeholders, including the government and also embassies and also some of the youth organization as the outcome, as the result of our youth forum today. There are 4 questions needed to be answered for our event this morning. The first one is, what are the roles of the young generation in diplomacy? The second one is, how can the youth contribute to strengthening the cooperation between Indonesia and Australia in various aspects? The third one is, what are the challenges faced in youth diplomacy? And the last one is, what are the future recommendations proposed by young leaders in strengthening the bilateral cooperation between Indonesia and Australia? Today, I would like also to invite Bapak Gofar Ismail, Minister Counselor, the Indonesian Embassy, Canberra, but unfortunately, Bapak Gofar is unable to attend our event, but he is so excited and he would like to speak to everyone. Therefore, he sent me a recorded video to welcome each and every one of you to this virtual youth forum. Ladies and gentlemen, let us see the video from Bapak Gofar Ismail, Minister Counselor, the Indonesian Embassy, Canberra. Kita akan lihat bersama video dari Bapak Gofar Ismail. Berikut videonya sedang ditampilkan.
Bapak Abri Eko Nuryanto from the Ministry of Youth and Sports, ya. Ibu Anggi Timur, the President of AYA, Australian Capital Territory. Ibu Ayu Dwi Adi Susanti, AYEP 2015, Professor Greg Philly from ANU, and Director of Universitas Pendidikan Nasional in Denpasar, para peserta Virtual Youth Forum, baik yang berada di Indonesia maupun Australia, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Namo Buddhaya, salam sejahtera bagi kita semuanya. Selamat pagi, a very good morning to all of you. It is such a great honor for me to join you at the opening of the Virtual Youth Forum with the theme, the role of youth in strengthening the bilateral relations between Indonesia and Australia. It is also a great honor for me to represent the Embassy of the Republic of Indonesia in Canberra in this forum. Unfortunately, due to the global pandemic, this program has to be carried out virtually. Otherwise, actually, it is good if we can meet physically sometimes in the near future. But nevertheless, I believe that the spirit of learning and the spirit of gaining more knowledge as well as experience will keep us in a good mindset of positivity while participating in this program. Especially this morning, seeing all of participants who has the full passion and energy, somehow I feel that I'm young again. Bapak-bapak, ibu-ibu, saudara-saudari sekalian, all my friends here, this initiative is a true testament that the good relations between Indonesia and Australia are on the level of good relations. This program will definitely enrich each of us, everybody of us, the personal advancement, networking, knowledge, and experience. Many programs have been organized between Indonesia and Australia, like IAP, AYA, IMAP, Dharma Siswa, BSBI, and etc. Those projects are the valuable projects that support the youth vision that our two countries believe in. As the youth of today hold the potential and the power to shape the future. The youth are both the leaders of the future and also the agents of change of the present. The youth are the voices that can reject hatred, conflict, suspicion, discord, and mistrust. And the youth are the voices that can sow peace, cooperation, and harmony. The existence of these vibrant groups of young Indonesians and Australians have shown that the youth are the representation of a peace future as well as the hope of our country's relations. Therefore, in this opportunity, I would like to share with you that the government of Indonesia and also the government of Australia through DFAT, or in Indonesia through Kementerian Luar Negeri, have become our main partner, our main agents of change in running the exchange program that has proven to be effective medium to promote a better cross-cultural understanding among the youth of our two countries. Bapak-bapak, ibu-ibu, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, people-to-people contact, including the youth exchange program, is indeed and will always become one of the cornerstones of Indonesia and Australia bilateral relations. Today we are witnessing a very special group of young and bright Indonesians and Australians like yourself who are about to embark a wonderful yet challenging journey after the two countries have signed the important agreement which is called AYA-CEPA. AYA-CEPA has came into force on the 5th of July 2020, and AYA-CEPA is not about economic cooperation only. It is also related to people-to-people contacts and people-to-people links that all of us, the young generation, can take part in this important agreement. You are the face of Indonesia and you are the face of the bilateral relations between Indonesia and Australia in the future. As for the Australian participants, I hope that through this program you will learn a lot about Indonesian rich cultures, traditions, values, bahasa Indonesia directly from your Indonesian friends. And it is also the best opportunity for you to share your cultures as well to Indonesian friends. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and all the participants, the last but not least, I hope this program could inspire you to make your own contribution to the betterment of Indonesia and Australia. And I hope as young generation can take advantage from AYA-CEPA. I fervently hope that every one of us will foster a great trust, contribute to the better relations between Indonesia and Australia. Terima kasih and thank you very much, and I hope you can take advantage enjoy the webinar organized by Universitas Pendidikan Nasional in Bali. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, that was a video sent from Australia by Bapak Gofar Ismail, Minister Counselor the Indonesian Embassy, Canberra. Thank you very much for a very insightful messages. And now let's proceed to the next agenda, remarks from Director of Universitas Pendidikan Nasional, represented by Head of Undiknas Study Center, Dr. Ana Agung Ayu Ngurhatini Rusmini Gorda.
Om Swastiastu. Selamat pagi. Saya sampaikan permohonan maaf dari Bapak Rektor Undiknas karena belum bisa bersama kita dalam virtual Youth Forum hari ini, karena kebetulan pada jam yang sama Bapak Rektor juga punya acara. Yang kami hormati Bapak Gofar Ismail, Minister Counselor the Indonesian Embassy in Canberra, para narasumber Bapak Abri Eko Nurjanto, Head of Division for International Partnership on Youth, Minister of Youth and Sport of the Republic of Indonesia, Anggi Kilos Tanggi Timur, President of Australia Indonesia Youth Association, Australia Capital Territory, Gusti Ayu Made Dwi Adi Susanti, Delegasi of Indonesia, Greg Philly, Associate Professor and Senior Fellow, Australia National University, dan moderator Ana Agung Mia Intentelia, SIP MA. Saya sangat mengapresiasi acara hari ini karena Pusat Studi Undiknas dalam hal ini sebagai penyelenggara adalah Pusat Kajian ASEAN dan Internasional telah mampu menginisiasi kegiatan Youth Forum dengan topik diplomasi pemuda, peran pemuda dalam memperkuat hubungan bilateral Indonesia-Australia. Hubungan kedua negara antara Indonesia-Australia meliputi kerjasama di berbagai sektor, mulai dari keamanan, perdagangan, budaya, pembangunan manusia, ekonomi, lingkungan, dan masih banyak sekali kerjasama-kerjasama yang bisa dilakukan oleh hubungan kedua negara tersebut. Hubungan kedua negara antara Indonesia-Australia dalam abad ke-21 membuat serangkaian peluang dan tantangan. Kedua negara harus mampu mengembangkan dan menerapkan dengan pendekatan yang lebih strategis untuk mewujudkan peluang dan menghadapi tantangan abad ke-21 mulai saat ini. Adalah bagaimana kita bisa memberdayakan para pemuda antar dua negara dengan melibatkan secara langsung berkontribusi pemuda untuk memperkuat dan mempererat hubungan bilateral kedua negara Indonesia dan Australia. Dengan perubahan yang sedang kita hadapi, peran pemuda sangat memungkinkan untuk meningkatkan hubungan yang lebih strategis antara Indonesia dan Australia yang sudah dengan cara yang saat ini dilakukan adalah kebetulan jarak tidak akan membatasi dengan situasi saat ini, bisa secara virtual maupun luring. Pemuda adalah harapan bangsa. Di tangan pemudalah hubungan bilateral Indonesia-Australia akan menjadi lebih baik. Maka diperlukan formula yang paling sederhana adalah bagaimana pemuda itu bisa menjaga trust. Jadi menjaga kepercayaan melalui menjaga citra dari masing-masing negara. Jadi untuk meningkatkan citra ini banyak cara diplomasi yang bisa dilakukan dan diyakini menjadi suatu kekuatan dari pemuda. Misalnya hari ini adalah pendekatan diplomasi pemuda, bisa juga dengan diplomasi bidang teknologi, sehingga dilakukanlah diplomasi digital. Kalau pemuda itu bisa mempunyai passion di bidang kuliner, itu bisa pendekatan melalui diplomasi kuliner, diplomasi fashion yang dalam hal ini adalah sudah dibudayakan bagaimana setiap hari Kamis memakai kain batik, ya, baju batik. Itu adalah kebanggaan dari Indonesia. Kalau kita cermati dari pemilihan tema atau topik diplomasi pemuda, peran pemuda dalam memperkuat hubungan bilateral Indonesia-Australia, maka ada beberapa PR besar yang harus diselesaikan dalam kegiatan hari ini. Yang pertama, apa saja yang diperankan oleh pemuda dalam diplomasi. Yang kedua, bagaimana pemuda bisa berkontribusi dalam memperkuat kerjasama Indonesia dan Australia. Dan apa saja tantangan yang dihadapi pemuda dalam memperkuat kerjasama Indonesia dan Australia, dan juga apa yang menjadi peluang bagi pemuda dalam memperkuat kerjasama Indonesia-Australia. Yang terakhir, yang terpenting dari sebuah acara, apakah mampu setiap acara dan khususnya hari ini melahirkan suatu rekomendasi yang strategis yang harus dihasilkan dalam Youth Forum ini. Demikian yang bisa saya sampaikan dan saya buka secara resmi Virtual Youth Forum. Semoga tujuan utama kegiatan hari ini dapat menjadi solusi strategis di antara kedua negara, Indonesia, Australia, untuk mengembangkan kerjasama yang lebih baik. Makan mangga harus dikupas, buang biji tumbuhlah tunas. Diplomasi pemuda harus berkualitas, hubungan kerjasama bilateral Indonesia-Australia pasti tuntas. Sekian, terima kasih. Om Santi, Santi, Santi Om.
Om Santi, Santi, Santi Om. Thank you so much for the remark and also officially open our virtual youth forum today. Thank you so much for the head of Unitas Study Center representing Director of Universitas Pendidikan Nasional. Now we would like to proceed to hear the presentation from 4 speakers. Before that, I'd like to introduce all of our speakers. The first one is Bapak Abri Eko Nurjanto. He's the head of the Division for International Partnership on Youth under the Deputy Assistant for Partnership and Youth Appreciation for the Deputy Minister for Youth Development at the Ministry of Youth and Sports of Indonesia. Since 2008, he has been leading numerous youth exchange programs between Indonesia and other partner countries, including Canada, China, India, Japan, Malaysia, and South Korea. And also he has been Indonesian national leader for SHIP for Southeast Asian and Japanese Youth Program, SEAP 2013. All these programs successfully promoted youth volunteerism through the selection process of the participants as well as post-program activities. Prior to working for the Ministry of Youth and Sports, Bapak Abri served as a school teacher and principal both in Indonesia and Thailand. He was also involved in SOMW Indonesia since 2008. Thank you very much, Bapak Abri. I'll give you 15 minutes to deliver your presentation.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, moderator. I call Ibu Ana Agung Dia. First of all, I would like to thank to all of you, especially the Indiknas, to invite us to join this virtual youth forum. Yes, like what just we know that the Ministry of Youth and Sport, we are organizing many activities as an implementation of the youth diplomacy on Indonesia, not only with Australia but with also with other countries. Like for bilateral, we have with Australia, with Canada, with Singapore, Malaysia, and then China, also Korea. And for multilateral, we have a program with SEAP, or SHIP for Southeast Asian and Japanese Youth Program. where Ibu Ana Agung also the members of SEAP, I guess. And also we have a Genesis program for bilateral, and also with India, there are two kinds of that. So ASEAN student visit India and ASEAN India student exchange program. So by involving this virtual virtual youth forum, I think first of all I would like to share many activities for the youth, especially for the exchange program, like I mentioned before. With Australia, I think Indonesia and Australia is a neighbor. So we cannot choose the neighbor, right? It's different. Australia and Indonesia is a neighbor each other. And another country also, we have like Malaysia and Singapore also a neighbor. So in the future, we will, establish another exchange program with the countries around Indonesia, like Brunei, and then Philippines and other Asian countries, and also the Papua New Guinea, and also Timor-Leste. So that's our plan in the future for the diplomacy through the international exchange program with Indonesia and the countries. But Australia is special because, the program for IX starts since its commencing 1981 for the MOU, and then the implementations from 1982. So until now, it's already 39 times for the exchange program. And this year is a special occasion for the IEC because of the COVID-19. Before I continue telling about that exchange program, I will start with a presentation. I will present this. It already shared. Can you please, moderator, I have a problem with this.
Okay, I will help you to share your screen.
Thank you. All right. I think we go to the next slide. Yes, as we know that young people are playing an increasing number of significant roles in many countries. And nowadays, young people also play a role in the socio-cultural, economic, political, and the diplomatic arena. Like this is like what just Pak Gofar said, that the youth area for diplomacy is not only in the socio-cultural but also economic and political. So, like Pak Gofar said before, that we are invited as a youth to join the IASEPA program. Hopefully, we can manage that event for the youth. And the youth diplomacy can set up network to promote collaborative dialogue and action to achieve national and global strategies. By using creative and intelligent young people, youth diplomacy is seeking promoting national interests through the masses of the young people in the world recognition, informing, influencing foreign audience, sending message to other audience, the spread of dialogue among youth, carrying out international models and exercising the universal management. The words elites, friendship with each other, and believing the national humanitarian strategies. Next slide. Yeah, we will see that young people and the millennial generation will play an important role to strengthen further and feel the partnership between Indonesia and Australia. They are agents of change who have roles. The roles include agent of peace by spreading positive messages, agents of socio-cultural development, agents of economic progress and development by helping to achieve sustainable development goals, and also agents to innovation, effort to encourage advances in technology and digital economy. One of the Ministry of Youth and Sport of the Republic of Indonesia in supporting the strategic role of youth is the Youth Development Program in terms of pioneering, leadership, entrepreneurship, and volunteering. So, say that like IAP program, inside the program, there are many things that the youth can do, yeah, including, to cover the policies at the Ministry of Youth and Sport. Next, please. And in the Ministry of Youth and Sport, and cover with the Indonesian Youth Law number 40, of 2009, regarding youth. It's intended to strengthen the position and opportunity for every citizen aged 16 to 30 to develop their potential capacity, self-actualization, and dream. So, every citizen aged 16 to 30 and involved in the youth program covered by Ministry of Youth and Sport and the parties. But as you know, the participant for the Australian Indonesia Youth Exchange Program, or IAP, is from 21 to 25. It's depend on the youth exchange program. And also, National Medium Term Development Plan for 2020-2024. It explained that in order to improve the quality of youth, it's necessary to strengthen institutional capacity, strategic coordination system across borders, as well as the development of the role of the private sector and the community in providing integrated youth services, increasing social and political active participation of youth, including the role of youth in international forum, and prevention of risky behavior in youth. And the other one is Presidential Regulation number 66, of 2017, regarding strategic coordination across sector for youth services. And the last one, for the Australia, we have arrangement between the Ministry of Sport of the Republic of Indonesia and the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade of the Youth Exchange Program. The regulation or MOU, this one, the arrangement, like I said before, it's signed in, the first arrangement is signed in 1981. And all of this legal basis become the, the basis of how we are taking the, say, IAP, yeah, for us, or and other exchange program. Next, please. Yeah. So the activities, Indonesia put great importance on the relationship with Australia, allowing Indonesian and Australian youth to connect with each other, will increase the possibility to achieving a mutual understanding among them. And since 1982, IAP has been playing the role in strengthening cooperation between Indonesia and Australia through the role of their youth. IAP helps Australian and Indonesian youth to connect through a series of activities which are carried out for 2 months in Australia and Indonesia. Yes, so as I saw now in this forum, I think almost a lot of participants joining this program. I mean, so many alumni of this IAP program join this program, yeah, join this virtual forum. So there is a kind of, so through this IAP program, we can see the practical how the alumni and participants from the countries trying to strengthen the bilateral cooperation between US and Australia by involving these activities. And as all you know, after the IAP program or after the all international exchange program, the participants should, conduct the post-program activities. Yeah, that could be in various program. Yeah, it could be like conducting. One of that could be conducting like event like this, or maybe another community development, or many other programs. So which will be, if you know, when the program recruit the participant from the, as Indonesia, we have 34 provinces, and we only have 18 candidates for join the IAP program. So we have to choose seriously. So we have to choose the participant that have capability and who have the plan to do the post-program activities. That's Indonesia. So that's why when the participant complete the program of IAP, they have to go back to their provinces, and they have to do the post-program activities.
Sorry, Pak Abri, 5 more minutes.
Okay, I will make it speed up. Okay. And IAP aims to IAP aims to provide opportunities to young people from Indonesia for a better understanding of the culture, development, and way to live for each other's countries. This program also aims to develop knowledge and skills through professional experiences, community development project, and international network. IAP participants are working together to promote the values of democracy, pluralism, and tolerance in both countries. Through cultural diplomacy and international exchange, Indonesia and Australia youth have opportunities provide an efficient channel in connecting communities. Next. Yeah. Our challenge now in diplomacy, that now we face the disruptive era in become disruptive era. So the way the world has changed, everything is changed for this disruptive era. So we need to adapt with this in the future. Start from now. And also about the pandemic, there is also a challenge how we implement the youth diplomacy. For example, like this year IAP is implemented by virtual. This adapting for this. I think there's not, hopefully it's not reduce the values of the IAP itself. Yeah. And domestic and global conditions that are undergoing major and fundamental changes. Like everything is changed now, so every country in the world need to formulate a foreign policy direction. So diplomacy also have to adapt to this. Next. As we have meeting with the youth, I mean the alumni of Indonesian exchange program last week in Jakarta, they have a recommendation for the exchange program that exchange program which I mean implementation of the youth diplomacy. They have a recommendation. The first is digitized program for youth diplomacy, such as IAT and other youth programs, and design program for youth diplomacy to be down to earth and impactful to the community, and adapt to the disruptive era, and also adapt to pandemic COVID-19. I think that's all about me. My last presentation. Hopefully, we can discuss later. I think this is like a reunion of Indonesian Youth Exchange Program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Terima kasih, Pak Abri. A very great presentation and very insightful as well. If you guys have any questions regarding the presentation from Pak Abri, you can type your questions on chat box. And for all the students and participants joining us on YouTube, you can also type your questions. Jadi kalian kalau ada pertanyaan, silakan diketik di chat box di Google Meet, ataupun yang join dari YouTube, silakan untuk mengetik pertanyaan di kolom chat YouTube, dan nanti di sesi Q&A kami akan bagikan pertanyaannya kepada para speaker. Terima kasih banyak. Thank you very much, Pak Abri, for a very insightful presentation about the legal basis, various programs supported by the government of Indonesia, the importance of post-program activities, on how youth exchange can promote better understanding of cultures, promote values of democracy and tolerance, and also we face some challenges such as COVID-19 pandemic, and a future recommendation on how to make this kind of youth program down to earth and impactful, and how to use digital technology to support this kind of program. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to proceed to the second speaker, Kilau Setanggi Timur, currently working as a media officer in the Department of Education, Skills and Employment. She was born in the US and migrated to Canberra when she was 4. And Anggi is an experienced reporter and freelance journalist for both Indonesia and Australia, interning at Metro TV, TVRI, and also SBS. She participated in the Ruili program in 2015 and IAP 2018-2019 in the Riau province as an Australian delegate. She has been a part of the Indonesian community in Canberra for 22 years, wow, and is committed to promote Indonesian language and culture in Australia. Anggi graduated with a Bachelor of Communication in Journalism from University of Canberra. Okay, Anggi, I'll give you like 15 minutes to also deliver your presentation.
Terima kasih, and selamat pagi semua, selamat siang for everyone here in Australia. Let me just share my presentation. Okay. Apakah semua bisa lihat?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Great. So, yes, thank you everyone for coming, and thank you for having me here today. I'll just bring up my notes. As I've been introduced, my name is Anggi, and I am the Australian Capital Territory Chapter President for the Australia-Indonesia Youth Association here in Canberra. Just elaborating on, for context, I am of Indonesian descent. So my father is from Gunung Kidul and my mother was born in Solo but grew up in Jakarta. And I lived in Indonesia for only less than a year before I migrated here to Canberra. And today I'll be focusing on the role of youth in the bilateral relationship between Australia and Indonesia, and the importance of what these roles bring to the relationship through my experiences doing the Australia-Indonesia Youth exchange program, being in the Australia-Indonesia Youth Association, and my personal experiences in these two. So starting with IEP. So just an introduction of what IEP is. IEP is the funded and run by the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, and it was established in 1982. So this program allows 18 Indonesians represented from each province and 18 Australians from each state and territory between the ages of 21 to 25 to experience an intensive social, professional and cultural exchange. The program goes for 4 months for the Indonesian delegates, where they live in rural Australia and live with a family there for 1 month. And then they go on to intern in a nearby city where they experience a workplace in the same state or territory. They are then paired up with an Australian counterpart, and together they travel to Indonesia, where they conduct community development projects in a village, and then do a similar thing where they go and do an internship in the city of the same province. So I was lucky enough to represent Canberra in 2018 to 2019, where we traveled to Riau province. So I did community development projects focusing on tourism and art in Siak, and I interned as a local reporter in Pekanbaru. So seeing this from an outside perspective, and someone who has nothing to do with the exchange program, it's quite a simple and straightforward program. Just like any other exchange programs that are offered around the world, where you can meet new people, study abroad, or do work or do internships overseas. And this is commonly offered from many different kinds of institutions all over the world. But coming out of this program myself as an alumni, I found that these things that were offered in the program and what we did tangibly in terms of doing the projects and that sort of thing were not the things that I valued the most out of doing the exchange. I found that there were three main things that I gained from this program. And the three things is the cross-cultural exchange and experience of language and culture. This is where I stayed with two very different host families, and I worked very closely with the community. And so here you have a picture of me and my host mom and my counterpart as well, where we stayed in a village that flooded every afternoon. And we would sort of see her work in the fields. But also later on, we moved to intern in the city, where we stayed in a nice big house, and we could go out and get drinks and that sort of thing. So it was very fun. Seeing both sides of what Indonesia has to offer and creating that bonding experience with my families and with my Indonesian counterpart. The second thing I really value from doing the program was the network I created from the dear friends that I still have from across Australia and across Indonesia. My cohort still talk until today from 2 years ago. We're still really close friends, and we still try to catch up almost every year. And we still support each other with our career and everything that we do in life and celebrate each other's milestones. But also doing the program opened up a huge network over almost 40 years for people who did IEP from previous years. And that really helped me create my own network and helped me actually get advice to find a job and pursue my own career with the help of the many people who used to do this program. And lastly, one of the biggest things I value from this was the very personal growth and reflection that I went through after doing the program, in terms of recognizing my identity as a person, the pride in my countries, both Indonesia and Australia, and the friendships that I really value. So going back to before, I am of Indonesian descent, but I lived in Australia most of my life. And coming into the program, I would always identify myself as Indonesian. But entering the program and thinking that I would be closer with the Indonesian counterparts, they were saying that you are not Indonesian, you're Australian. And that really confused me at the time. And it was true. I had never lived in Indonesia, even though I do speak Indonesian, and I take part in promoting Indonesian culture. I'm an Australian citizen, and it was a lot going through those few months and figuring out who I was as a person and how I chose to represent myself. And I found that also I could connect better with the Australian counterparts more than I realized, as I found that there were so many Australians who were very passionate about Indonesia as much as I was, despite the fact that they maybe weren't as connected to Indonesia as maybe I was. And if anything, they had explored Indonesia and had put a lot more work into their relationship with Indonesia, more than actually I have most of my life at that point. So this was a great opportunity that during this time we could help and improve a community in a village, and also gain professional experience. But these experiences were only put there as a catalyst to create very intense and very personal connections. At the end of the day, these were there just as a foundation that we could build upon ourselves, because they were only there to put us together and make us connect people to people very intimately and face to face. And because from that, we created a very strong network and very strong bond between both with each other from within our own nations, but also within both countries. And after doing this program, I realized why it has continued for almost 40 years, as it pushes those that are involved to create a lifelong bond and a very intimate bond between us that helps us contribute to the bigger picture in strengthening the bilateral relationship with both countries. And the reason why this program is significantly aimed for young people who are over 21 is because it is the stage of our life where we are finishing our studies and figuring out what we want to do with our careers. And it's a very crucial time for us during this period where we are trying to pursue our careers and figure out the support and network that we want. And it's only more beneficial that we could have it internationally and between the two countries, and really influence us to pursue a career that has to do with Indonesia, or on the other side of things, for the Indonesians to consider a career that has to do with Australia. I want to give a few examples with a few friends from my cohort. For example, my friend Isaac Bennett, who was from Queensland. During the program, I convinced him to move to the same city with me and work in the same department as me, where he could pursue also Indonesian studies as well. And it was something that he was still considering for a long time, but after the program, it just really pushed him and influenced him to take that further. I have another friend who was also based in Canberra, who is now a graduate at the Department of Foreign Affairs, and that a lot of influence came from the program that we did. And coming out of this program myself, I was really motivated to contribute more to the bilateral relationship here in Canberra, and help with the bigger picture and do what I can with the little amount of power that I have in Canberra, which is why I joined the Australia-Indonesia Youth Association here in Canberra. So moving on to AYA, the Australia Indonesia Youth Association. So this is a association that is non-government youth-led organization which aims to better connect young Indonesians and Australians to each other and to the Australia-Indonesia related opportunities. So AYA, for short, has 8 chapters in Australia representing each state and territory, and 4 chapters in Indonesia, di Jawa Barat, Yogyakarta, Eastern Indonesia, and Jakarta. So each chapter runs various kinds of events to connect, inform, and inspire young Australians and Indonesians. I believe that AYA is one of the only active youth organizations that works at the root of each city to maintain the Australia-Indonesia community, youth community within their local area. AYA aims to encourage young people to join our community and grow the community and consider pursuing Indonesian further in their studies or later on into their career. Our association aims to increase the Australian interest as well, especially the increase interest in Indonesia among the local youth. And this is done through holding small events such as panel events and forums such as this one, fun things such as trivia nights or Indonesian movie screenings, networking nights, and language exchange. My personal overall mission as the president of the Australian Capital Territory chapter is to create a space where young people can build their own network within the local community, which can help them through their studies and further on in their career once they graduate. We want to show how successful someone can be if they pursue a career related to Indonesia, because I feel that Australia still has many gaps and opportunities for young people to take and pursue, which is why I think we want to build that interest and show that there are possible careers and you can be successful when you work with Indonesia here in Australia. We plan to make AYA a friendly space, a platform, and a source of support for those who study Indonesian and help those transition into the workplace. For next year, our mission is to create a greater demand for Indonesian language and culture by going to local high schools and promoting Asian studies courses at the Australian National University here in Canberra, because the demand has been quite low, and I think it's part of our role as youth to influence other people in our youth to show what a great opportunity this is and how easy it is to be connected to Indonesia and all the potential that brings to our country.
And you 2 minutes?
Sorry?
2 more minutes?
Thank you. Almost done. So just to conclude, these are my conclusions and recommendations. So the reason why youth relationships work is because that, as I've discussed from my experiences through IEP and AYA, the reason why youth create a strong bond is because we share similar challenges as young people, especially it was very amplified in IEP, going through the projects together and doing the internships together and facing similar conflicts together that really bonds us as youth. Also, just the consumption of media and the world around us is very similar, and we are always able to create our own sort of memes or jokes and popular culture that bond us together despite what country we're from, and it really creates a bond. But also, once again, we share the same goals and the same stage of life in terms of we're trying to finish university, get a fulfilling job, and also our early 20s are one of the most formative years of our adult life. As a youth, we are trying to find the purpose of our purpose in life and what role we play in our society. And I think that it's something that we should nurture and really encourage this community so it can expand further. My recommendations is that we need to create more experiences like this, whether it be short language programs such as the release programs or summer language courses, or really long intensive ones like IEP. In turn, we need to enhance these networks by creating larger, regular intensive events where youth can meet in one place. So maybe possibly a youth convention for Australian Indonesian youth to meet, where we can have serious intensive discussions and share life experiences. But also, we need to reevaluate the bilateral dynamic of Australia and Indonesia. So far it's always been Australia assessing what's happening in Indonesia, but I think it's important for Indonesia to assess what's happening in Australia and understand why is Australia the way it is, just so we both have a deep understanding of the values and the country's cultures to create a better bilateral relationship. And lastly, I think one thing that we need to consider is that national identity is now fluid. In the future, there'll be more and more young people like myself where we do not identify with one nation. I identify as an Australian Indonesian, and I have a love for both countries. So when we do exchange programs in the future, I think it'll be beneficial to understand that we are not tied to one country anymore, especially now that maybe not at the moment with COVID, but people originate from different countries and identify with different places and different cultures. So it'll be harder and harder for these programs to segregate two nations. And I think we will really benefit from gaining knowledge from people with a mixed background and who can contribute to this space. So the world is becoming more mixed in terms of culture, ethnicity, identity, and the content we consume. So this is something that we can really celebrate and take advantage of as the youth continue to strive to build a career that is within a globally interconnected environment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anggi. A very interesting presentation. I'm looking forward actually to having this kind of youth convention one day, and hopefully we can still collaborate and cooperate for that. Looking forward, very interesting. Anggi has shared a lot of things regarding her experience for IEP and also how that actually really impact her personal growth and also a reflection and some interesting recommendation as well. Thank you so much. I'd like to proceed to the next. Terima kasih, Anggi. I'd like to proceed to the next speaker, our third speaker, Gusti Ayu Made Dwi Adi Susanti. Hello, selamat pagi, good morning. She was graduated from Indonesia University of Education, English Education Department, active member of PCMI Bali, also member of Organization of Language Ambassador for Bali Province, and she was a teacher assistant at Rosary Primary School, Canberra, Australia, 2015. And currently she is the L&D and QCI coordinator at Holiday Inn Resort and Express Baruna, Bali. Okay, so Ayu Ade, you have like 15 minutes, and I'd like also to welcome Greg here. Thank you so much. Selamat pagi, Greg. Thank you for joining us this morning. Selamat pagi. Okay. Ayu Ade, 15 minutes for your presentation. Dan kalau ada yang punya pertanyaan, if you guys have any questions about the presentation, feel free to type your questions on chat box. Ayu Ade.
Okay, thank you guys and everyone. Good morning, and I'm very happy to see all of you, even though we can only do our meeting virtually now, but I guess will be as good as what we expected to share our insight about what youth can do in terms of diplomacy for both countries in Indonesia and Australia for bilateral concerns. Actually, I now live very close to the airport, so please excuse and pardon if once in a while you heard the sounds of the aircraft take off and landing back and forth. So I'll start present now. So can you see my slides? So Mia, can you see my slide already?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm very grateful for Anggi to share a lot of your IAP experience, because it will make my presentation slightly shorter, because I am also the alumni of Australia and Indonesia Youth Exchange Program. My program was in 2015, and as we all know now, it's been 5 years now going on in 2020. And the memory and the excitement of the program is still very strong for me personally, and I think for all the participants throughout the years. So, as what Anggi has shared, Australia-Indonesia Youth Exchange Program, or abbreviated as IAP, is established in 1982, and it involved youth from 21 until 25 years old in Australia and also in Indonesia through social, professional, and cultural exchange. It's a chance for participants to grow their intercultural skills, professional experiences, and international networks. So from Indonesia, there will be 18 participants from all over Indonesia. So not all youth from every province in Indonesia will gain the opportunity at the certain year, but by year, the opportunity will be rolled, and every province will get the opportunity to join the program, and also involving the other, the aircraft's coming on, and then the other 18 youth from Australians will also join the program, mostly 2 months after the program commenced in Jakarta. So overall, the program is for about 4 months in total. 2 months in Australia and 2 months in Indonesia. So as what Anggi has stated before, in Indonesia we'll do mostly community development, but also work placement in the same province, and also in Australia we'll live first in the rural area and then also in the city to do also work placement. So here are the picture of me and my friends together with all the participants from Indonesia and also from Australia after we arrived in Jakarta. So in the program, we mostly do community development, work placement, cultural performance, and also family placement. So through IAP, young Australian and Indonesia are taking up the bilateral course and becoming the great champions. More meaningful engagement between our neighboring countries during this 4 months program. It is definitely engaging a portion of the generation to genuinely participate in the bilateral relationship to ensure the long-term robustness of youth action space. So we collaborate to do community development, especially during Indonesian phase. So during this program, youth specifically will need to do the diplomacy for all the program being done in IAP. For example, like community development and work placement, cultural performance, and family placement. None of this program can be done without diplomacy. So, say for example, work placement. When I was in Canberra and also in my rural, my city phase was in Canberra and my rural phase was in New South Wales, Nowra. I was in concerning in training and education field. So my internship in Canberra in Rosary Primary School, and in Nowra I did my work placement in Nowra High as a teacher assistant. So diplomacy actually is what most needed when we are, because without that we cannot communicate and also sharing our idea and interest during the work placement, say for example, because every event and by day going, that's what we are doing, because the participant of each work placement will need to present their ideas and also what they are going to do, what they can share about Indonesia or also in Australia. So diplomacy is what most needed. Also in cultural performance, we are presenting this whole 18 provinces from all over Indonesia. Even diplomacy is needed within the group of Indonesian contingent. So the basic of diplomacy also applied in this situation, because when we bring our own culture from our own province and then we are about to do cultural performance, there will be communication at most needed, because we are blending our idea, the culture that we bring from our home, and then to make the ideal performance during cultural performance that we present in both Australia and Indonesia, the youth participated need to do the diplomacy and also the communication in which to present the best cultural performance during the program. Also, family placement. In IEF, we have at least 3 host families, 2 in Australia, and four host families, 2 in Australia and also 2 in Indonesia. When we are as Indonesian come to Australia and then we have this our own host families hosting us in their home, and then they want to know what Indonesia is like, or what is Indonesia, what do we bring to tell them story about Indonesia. And also when we already arrived in Indonesia with our counterparts, and our counterparts didn't know that much about Indonesia, and we have to present them the original life situation in Indonesia to the Australian participant, diplomacy is also what most needed. It is very basic. So not all participants from Australia has this much knowledge about Indonesia. So we need to be the bridge to be the catalyst of the program to become smoother, because we need to present what Indonesia is like to the participant from Australia. And then mostly about community development program, which we only do in Indonesian phase, especially in the rural phase. This community development program is a huge project during IEF program. So youth diplomacy also applied at the bigger portion in this section, because when doing community development program, we do a lot of activities in the rural area of Indonesia, which we as an Indonesian probably didn't really know much about, not to mention from the Australian participants. So the diplomacy between Australian participant and Indonesian participant will involve the other community around the area. So that what's most exciting about this whole IEF program is when we are doing community development and communicating not only by the participant from both countries, but also involving the community in a certain province in a rural area of Indonesia, and then we can do more of social and community development, like we participated in early age education, and also we try to build a better water system, and then we involving in people that already have this not really good situation in their own rural area, and then so we try to be involved more and present what we can do for them. I think that's not easy for us as Indonesian to do that, not to mention for the Australians. So the diplomacy is what it is most needed in this point of the program.
Are you ready? 5 more minutes?
Okay, and then also through youth exchange, cooperation also can be strengthened. So I think there are a lot of cooperation that can be strengthened from youth exchange program, but there are three things that eventually I will bring during this presentation. The first is that education, because in terms of education, there are curricula in Australia that focus on learning language other than English, including Indonesian. So when I was teaching in Rosary Primary School of Canberra, there are certain subjects in which the student can choose, and one of the chosen language to be learned in Canberra is Indonesia itself. So I think during this cooperation, education is one thing that we can strengthen by the youth exchange. And then also tourism. Since I am now involving more in tourism industry, I can understand that Australia take a big part when we are building our tourism industry in Indonesia, especially in Bali. After China, Australia is the biggest market for us to develop our tourism sector in Indonesia. And also the last one is sociocultural. It is a very big term, but let me give you one example where one of my Australian participant is so attached to Indonesia right after the program, and until then they or she with the other friends of us from Australia developed this kind of program in Lombok or in Nusa Tenggara Barat, which empowered women in doing such sports like handball or baseball, which related to women empowerment and also in development of health issues. I think the challenge for the youth in diplomacy is truly exists. Youth provide an efficient channels in connecting communities through cultural and international exchange. So when we are lacking of our confidence to join such kind of, let's say, cultural or international exchange, it will risk to fall into irrelevance. So I think we all agree that youth holds future. So what I recommend for young generation, especially during this forum, is that everyone, each and every one of you who are joining this forum now has the equal opportunities to be contributing to what we can do regarding the diplomacy of youth in terms of bilateral situation between Indonesia and Australia. So I really recommend that we are being more open and being more excited about joining, let's say, youth exchange program or applying, let's say, education abroad, not only in Indonesia but also outside of Indonesia, just to enlarge our view and ready to become the agent of change, because that will deepen our understanding about our own country and the other countries that we studied in. So I think everyone has the equal opportunities. Let's say me, myself, I come from a very small village, and then at first I don't really think that I can join such kind of youth exchange program, but I think I need to do or think outside of the box, and then I try at least my best to reveal what I have inside, just to go out there and then join more people, gaining more experiences, and then end up in what we can say as that youth can do more by joining the international studies, joining the youth action program to deepen understanding and also strengthening the situation between Indonesia or Australia or the other countries that we live in. I think that's all, Mia, about my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Terima kasih Ayu Ade. Thank you so much. A very interesting presentation as well. So we have actually listened to Ayu Ade's experience during her program, AYA program, and also how youth can contribute in this kind of diplomacy in various aspects, including education, tourism, social culture. And I'd like to also highlight this point when she said that everyone has actually this equal opportunity to contribute and to join this kind of program. Thank you, very interesting. If you guys have any questions, please just type it on the chat box or on YouTube chat, because I've seen there are some questions already on YouTube. And now I'd like to welcome our next speaker, Greg Philly, Associate Professor and Senior Fellow, Indonesian Politics, Department of Political and Social Change, Bell School of Asia Pacific Affairs, College of Asia and the Pacific. He was the head of the Department of Political and Social Change, ANU, 2013 till 2018. He's the chair of the Australia-Indonesia Institute within the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade from 2016 till now. And he's also director of the Partnership in Islamic Education Scholarship Program, 2012 until now. And he was a visiting professor in Indonesian politics at Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies, Washington, D.C. in 2003. Thank you so much and welcome, Greg. Thank you so much for attending our youth forum. You have 15 minutes to share your thoughts and perspective.
Terima kasih banyak Ibu atas undangan, and it's my great pleasure to speak to the group. Can you hear me? Is it?
Yeah.
That's sounding good. Thank you. I see Shamila's head is nodding. So I'm sorry I don't have a PowerPoint. I should have. I was looking at Anggi and Ayu, both had very good PowerPoints, and so I hope what I say is clear. If it's not, please ask any questions or ask me to clarify. Kalau perlu saya bisa menjelaskan dalam bahasa Indonesia, but I think the instructions are I'm supposed to use English. So I wanted to talk on this theme of the role of youth, pemuda, in bilateral diplomacy between Australia and Indonesia. And it seems to me two obvious ways one can deal with this. The first one is a more formal, almost an ambassadorial sense that pemuda in a program like IEP are really like sort of dubes in Duta Besar between the two countries. And they are representing their countries to the best of their ability. They explain things about their country to people from the other country, looking at what is similar, what is different. And that's very important for people to do that formal representative role between Australia and Indonesia. But what I wanted to focus on more was the intellectual aspects of the way in which youth can contribute to a bilateral relationship. And I know I'm speaking to an audience largely of university students, as I understand it, so hopefully this is of some interest to you. But when I talk about the intellectual contribution, I really mean having an open mind when you engage with the other country and in seeking to learn about the other country. Reflecting on the things you find out about the other country and what's different and how those things relate to your own society, because this is where the real learning, it seems to me, takes place. It's not just a matter of a young person learning about Australia, but it's then the following process of them thinking, what does this mean for my own society? Why are things different in Australia to my own society? What aspects did I like or not like about the other country, or has it made me reconsider things about my own society? So this is where often the personal and the intellectual growth comes from this intellectual engagement. So it's not just about representing your country, it's doing something more than that. It's about asking questions, being curious, kepingin tahu, listening, comparing to people from the other country. I've been traveling to Indonesia for, I hate to say how long it is, 33 years or something like that. And there are some parts of Indonesian society that I have had very close contact with for over 30 years. And I am still learning. I spend a lot of time studying particular Islamic organisations like Nahdlatul Ulama, going to Pesantren, for example. And I'm always learning whenever I go back to those institutions or when I meet people from those organisations. So it's a lifelong thing. That's one of the really enriching things about being involved in studying and interacting with Indonesia. So that's the part I wanted to emphasise. Now, what I thought I would do is just take two small examples of how this might be something that might be of interest to young Indonesians or young Australians studying the other country. Two things I do quite a bit of research in. One of them is religion, and the other is international relations, bilateral relations. So let me begin with the religious part. In lots of ways, Australia and Indonesia look remarkably different countries religiously. Australia is slight majority Christian. Indonesia is the world's single largest Muslim population. But if we look at some of the census data, it's very interesting to compare this. In Australia, in its last census, which was in 2016, the biggest category was for people who said they had no religion. About almost 30% of people who answered the census said they had no religion. This has increased. It was 22% 10 years before, and it was only 16% in 2001. So it's increased very dramatically the number of Australians who say that they have no religion. If we compare this to percentage of Christians are about 51% of the Australian population. If we compare that to Indonesia, where 88% of Indonesians say they are Muslim. That figure, 88%, if you go back to 1966, 88% of Australians said that they were Christian. That fell to 74% in 1991. But now it's only 51%. So you can see that the number of people who follow the main religion in Indonesia, Christianity, is falling quite dramatically. And the number of people who claim they have no religion is going up. A couple of other figures about this. Islam is 2.6% of the Australian population. So is Hinduism, about 2.6% of the population. And both religions are growing very quickly. Christianity is declining, but Islam and Hinduism is going up. And the census data and survey data also shows us that the younger you are, the less likely you are to have a religion. About 40% of young people, that's people between 18 and 34 years of age, 40% said they had no religion. So Australia, looking at those figures, is a much less religious society than is Indonesia. And so when we're talking about similarities and contrasts, there is a really big contrast. So why is this? For many Indonesian friends of mine, if I mention this figure to them, they are really surprised, shocked even. How can so many people not believe in God? And it could be some of these people are not sure whether there's a God or not, but the important thing is they don't believe in a God. But that's fundamentally different from Indonesia, where almost no one says that they don't believe in God. And indeed, sometimes you can find yourself in prison if you say that you're an atheist. So there's a very big contrast between the two countries. So this is a really interesting thing to study and to understand. Having spoken about a difference, let me also mention a similarity. And that is, among highly religious young people, the trends are similar. So I mentioned before that a lot of young people don't have a religion, but for those people who do have a religion, they are increasingly religious. Mereka semakin saleh, semakin kaidah-kaidah agama. So Evangelical Christians, those communities are growing very rapidly in Australia and in Indonesia. And the same for what we might call born-again Muslim communities. In Indonesia, many of you will know we had this Gerakan Hijrah, the Hijrah movement. Lots of young middle-class Muslims who find a different kind of Islam, a more intense Islamic experience. And it's a very powerful subculture within big cities, is this Hijrah movement. In Australia, we have something similar. Salafism, a more stricter form of Islam, a more puritanical form of Islam, is also growing very quickly and drawing a lot of comment. So that's a similarity between the religious communities in the two nations. One last thing to mention, another similarity, is confidence in large religious organisations is declining in both countries. Whether it's the Catholic or the Protestant churches in Australia, or whether it's big Islamic organisations in Indonesia like Nahdlatul Ulama, Muhammadiyah, Persis, all of those are losing younger members to new kinds of Islamic groups, study groups, groups like Hijrah and things like that. So it's a difficult time for big organisations because people are much more drawn to more individual religious experiences rather than joining big organisations. So I mention all these things to you. I don't know if they're interesting or not, but I mention them to you because they are ways that we can look in at each other's countries and learn something. And the answers to some of these questions, why are we so different, are not at all easy to answer. They're intellectually challenging, intellectually stimulating. So as an academic, I would urge you to engage in this process of learning about countries, because when you go looking, it's quite different. Last thing, and I don't want to take too much time, was to look at an international relations issue which is very important to both Indonesia and Australia at the moment, and that is about China. There are many similarities in the relationship that Australia has with China and Indonesia's relationship with China. China is the biggest trading partner for both of our countries. And it's also the biggest strategic relations problem that both countries have. And how Australia and Indonesia respond to this is very different. Australia is siding, it's joining with the United States in a policy of trying to limit China's influence in Southeast Asia, in the South Pacific, in Asia broadly. So Australia not exactly doing everything the United States does, but an ally of the United States in this regard. And the Chinese have retaliated against Australia in recent weeks. Some of you might have seen this. There are some trade sanctions that actually causing quite a bit of pain in Australia. So relations are very tense between Australia and China. Much better relations between Indonesia and China. And in Australia, there's a hope that Indonesia will increasingly support Australia in trying to limit China's influence. But Indonesia has not been at all interested in doing that. Indonesia has a policy of neutrality, of being an honest broker. And whenever Australians suggest that Indonesia should join Australia in limiting China's influence, the Indonesians say, no, thank you. We're happy with what we're doing. So why is this? Understanding the difference. This is where it's quite interesting, it seems to me. Indonesian listeners will know, of course, Indonesia has this foundation concept in its foreign policy of bebas aktif, of free and independent foreign policy, which it has upheld since 1948, since Muhammad Hatta first announced that policy. So Indonesia never joins alliances, and it doesn't want to be too close to any superpower. It's always been this way. Indonesia was a founding member of the non-aligned movement, also a very important part of ASEAN, which also tries to avoid superpower entanglements. So Indonesia has this tradition, long tradition of diplomatic independence. Australia, by contrast, has a tradition of what we call great and powerful friends. Kawan akbar dan dengan kekuatan besar. So the very great and powerful friends. Until the Second World War, Britain, our former colonial master, was Australia's great and powerful friend. After the Second World War, it was the United States, and it has been up until this day. Australians feel very insecure if they don't have a superpower that they think will protect it if there is conflict or a war. So we feel very insecure in our region. Indonesia, I think, also feels a certain insecurity, but they respond in a different way. They don't want a superpower to protect them. They want to pursue a multilateral approach to ASEAN, to the non-aligned movement. So they approach a problem like China in a completely different way to what Australia does. Indonesia, like Australia, faces dilemmas, and they've responded in a different way, but in a way that is consistent with the origins of their foreign policy. One would argue the same for Australia. So this brings me to my final point, and that is, this is the power that you as youths, as pemuda, have in the bilateral relationship. The power to give your insights to each other's nation, to explain these differences and similarities to your own communities. And here I think understanding, conveying understanding and knowledge is much more important than opinions. You might be appalled that so many Australians do not have religion. You might be unhappy that Indonesia doesn't take an anti-China stance. And that's your right. Everyone will have their opinion, of course. Use your brain to come up with judgments about these things. But the more important thing for us as people in the bilateral relationship is to illuminate, to mencerahkan these masalah-masalah antara kedua negara. So have constructive explanatory role between the two countries, rather than editorializing about what is good and what is bad, rather what is different and why is it different. And my final concluding point would be, in Australia, we have a great need for more information about Indonesia and to hear that from Indonesians, because there is arguably, and I'm sorry to say this, I'm very sad to say this, growing ignorance in Australia regarding Indonesia, because less and less Australians learn Indonesian and less learn about Indonesia at school and at universities. And so we know that a large minority of Australians still think that Indonesia is ruled by TNI. They don't know that Indonesia is a democracy. we have lots of misunderstandings about Indonesia, about its culture, its history, its politics, its legal systems. So I hope that people like you can play a role in rectifying this, in improving this by contributing your thoughts, contributing your analysis, your insights to the bilateral relationship, because it's very much needed. I'll leave it there, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Terima kasih, Professor Greg, for a very interesting thought and perspective. I got the information from Sharmila that you have to leave and you have another agenda at 11. Is that correct? In another 20?
That's right, yes, in about another 20 minutes, yeah.
Okay, so we actually have 6 more youth comments, but we have one question for you. So I think we should move to Q&A only for Professor Greg. A question from Surya. What is your advice for youth in both Indonesia and Australia who are eager to connect but hesitant because of the differences in beliefs in respect of youth not adhering to religion in Australia and youth getting more religious in Indonesia?
That is a very good question. This is from Surya. Terima kasih banyak, Surya, atas pertanyaannya. So I think one important thing is to not feel threatened, personally threatened, if someone has a different set of beliefs than you, or indeed has no beliefs at all. Sometimes Indonesians come to Australia and they know that there are lots of people who have no religion at all or have a different religion, and they feel perhaps that might undermine their own religion. And in a way, that sense of vulnerability shouldn't really be there. If you have strong beliefs, you know, learning about a different set of beliefs is not going to destabilize or threaten your own beliefs. So I think when I said before, going in with an open mind, just talking to people. Often people have stereotypes. Australians, for example, when they go to Indonesia, if they have anything to do with Muslim groups, for example, they often also feel a little bit uncomfortable. What if they say the wrong thing? What if the Muslim groups attempt to convert them to their religion? Something like that. All of those things are usually have no substance to them at all. If you just talk to people, regardless of what faith they have or whether they have a faith at all, if you just ask them about what they believe in, what's important to them, you will learn from that. You will gain understanding as to why they have those particular views. And sometimes it gives you insights into your own faith and your own community. So a very prominent American scholar wrote a few years ago that Indonesia has what he called godly nationalism, that religion was suffused, it was an integral part of Indonesian sense of the nation and of national identity. And I think that's a very powerful insight. Not everyone listening might agree, but that would be the sort of statement about Australia that a great many Australians would not agree with. So there's quite a marked difference. So I think if you're coming from a quite different tradition, go in with an open mind, non-judgmental position, and try not to put your opinion as if you think someone else is doing the wrong thing or holds the wrong views. I've spent a lot of time talking to all sorts of people, convicted terrorists in Indonesia, all sorts of people who are campaign against things that I personally have a strong objection to. I try never to let that get in the way of the discussion I'm having with another person, because you have to separate your own personal views from the broader role that you're playing of learning about the other country. And often difficulties arise when someone says, I think you're wrong not to believe in God. Some people might respond quite well to that, but other people might not. So just knowing when to be frank, when to engage in a more personal level of conversation, or when just to be asking questions that give information that you need to understand things better. I think that's an important part.
Thank you so much, Professor Greg. Thank you, a very interesting answer as well. So Professor Greg has also told us about the importance of intellectual aspect of this youth diplomacy. So it is about personal growth and also intellectual growth, to ask questions, to listen, and also to also see from religious part and international relations part. Thank you so much, very interesting. Terima kasih, Professor Greg.
Terima kasih banyak, Ibu Mia, and I wish the rest of your discussions, I hope they're very successful and productive. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Terima kasih. Sampai ketemu lagi, Professor Greg.
Terima kasih.
Let's proceed to the next agenda of our virtual youth forum after hearing the presentation from 4 speakers, Bapak Abri, Anggi, Ayu Ade, and also Professor Greg. Now let's hear the comments and also recommendations from 6 selected youth, from 6 youth representatives. I'd like to invite the first one to deliver her comment and also recommendation, Clara Listia Dewi, National Language Ambassador of Indonesia 2016.
Thank you, Mia, and thank you for Uniqueness Study Center for giving me an opportunity in giving comments and recommendations in this virtual youth forum. I'm so glad that I hear some of the good presentation from our speakers, and today I would like to give you my comments and recommendation about that kind of topics that we have today. Well, Indonesian youth in future of partnership in diplomacy, they also can be trusted as a national culture diplomats because they have a great enthusiasm, ideas, and also energy. They are also can be considered to have a regional ideas, so they will have a sense of pride and also responsibility. One of the strengths of Indonesian youth is having high self-confidence when given responsibility according to their roles and abilities, especially if it's about the respective country, Indonesia. When talking about the role of Indonesian youth, there is something that to be grateful for. That is a diversity, because we're living in diversity and differences that can be an added value for Indonesian youth in increasing a higher sense of sensitivity. And this sense of sensitivity is an important aspect of preparing them to deal with other people, especially in abroad. And then how actually the relationship between youth and diplomacy itself. First, let's define what diplomacy is. Diplomacy is a cooperative relationship, simply in this case between 2 countries. And this cooperative relationship is very important to fulfill the national interests of the countries. And this is also can be defined as the art and practice of negotiating. And it is usually represented by a representation that we call as a diplomat. This kind of diplomacy takes care of various things such as about the economic sector, political sector, and also cultural sectors. And the educational scholarship program, students exchange, is a clear example how actually Indonesia cooperation and diplomacy with other countries, including research and also technology development. If we talk about the diplomatic relation between Indonesia and Australia, we can see from the history a long time ago in the cooperation between 2 countries in the aspect of economic, culture, political sector that have been carried out by 2 countries. Australia is one of the countries that first supported Indonesian struggle to gain independence. And the 70 years milestone between Indonesia and Australia began when Sukarno chose Australia to represent Indonesia at the United Nations level. And from this history, we can conclude that Indonesia and Australia have a good relationship, and those 2 countries have maintained a close cooperation for almost 70 years due to their geographic and also historical proximity. Youth then can be considered as means of bringing 2 countries closer together through education and also culture. In the context of relationship between Indonesia and Australia, there are many examples of activities that youth can be carried out, such as join in student exchange, like what all of you guys already done, and culture exchange program. Culture exchange for youth is kind of the culture diplomacy. And if we want to more extensive things, this kind of things, we can see from the joining in such as a working holiday visa program that I have created to Indonesian Australia Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement this year. And recently this year, Indonesia and Australia signed the Indonesian Australian Economic Comprehensive Agreement. And this is kind of a good opportunity for the Indonesian youth to get the chance to going outside, especially to Australia, to get more experiences. How about the challenge for youth in diplomacy itself? There are many forms of cooperation and partnership between two countries that are expanded for Indonesia, both in economic and the culture sector. At this time, diplomacy is no longer taking time in high political sector, but also in domestic political things and civil societies, and people to carry out this term. And Indonesian youth also can play an important role as a diplomatic actor. However, when we analyze it, there is still some challenges that Indonesian youth studies still facing. The first one is standardization of skills, and the second one, the limited language skills. Those kind of things could be a problem if those kind of things cannot be mastered by Indonesian youth. So, for example, like the skills, there are still many Indonesian young people who don't have a skill that meet international standard. And this can be an obstacle for young Indonesians to be ready to compete in global areas. And the second one is about the limited of language skills, that it also can be a problem. Foreign language, especially English, are the main assets for young people to adapt with international world. And if the language is not mastered by them, it will be difficult for them to match their abilities with people from other countries, which automatically will make Indonesian youth lose competitiveness. So what is my recommendation regarding two big problems with Indonesian youth in this case of diplomatic relation? The first one is intensifying the transfer of knowledge between of the two countries. The transfer of knowledge can create opportunities, challenges, and experience in building and developing institutions that can be act as knowledge exchange network or knowledge hubs. It's aimed to gather learning and build knowledge network in more systematic manner, and it's aimed to gather knowledge in one of important instruments to achieve optimal development result and strengthen the national capacity, especially for Indonesian youth. And the second one is involving young people in more cultural diplomatic mission, and this kind of good things that can give an opportunity for Indonesian youth to show more about the culture that we have here in Indonesia. This kind of recommendation that I can give today. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and hope to see this kind of the virtual youth forum as the way that we can strengthen cooperation between Indonesia and Australia. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Clara. Very interesting perspective and thought and recommendation. For your information, for all participants, all the recommendation given by the speakers and also the youth representative will be compiled into one written recommendation at the end of this youth forum. Let's proceed to hear the comment and also recommendation from the second youth representative, Sharmila Yasmin, Delegate of Australia for IAP 2020.
Hi everyone, Om Swastiastu. My name is Shamila, and like Mia said, I'm a delegate of IAP 2020, and I'm so excited to be here. Talking about youth diplomacy is very exciting because I'm living this experience right now, and it's been so enlightening thus far. So youth diplomacy is critical in strengthening any bilateral relationship, but I think it's especially so in the Australian-Indonesian relationship, because despite being geographically close, there is such a stark difference in our cultures, histories, and languages. I think both countries appreciate that we have such diverse societies, but like Greg pointed out, oftentimes such diversity gives rise to a sense of otherness and misunderstanding. And so because of this, creating a culture of curiosity and education in all levels of our society is vital to strengthening this relationship. So Australia and Indonesia, I think, our relationship has been shaped by so many highs and lows, and it's often exacerbated by a gap in the cultural understanding that we have at our senior levels of politics and bureaucracy. There have been controversial or critical events in Indonesia that has often garnered a response of ambivalence or just outright rejection from the Australian government. And I think this stems from a desire to balance Australia's perceived reputation as a liberal power of the region, but also preserving this important relationship with Indonesia. And this turbulence has been exacerbated by the current political climate. So with the rise of nationalist sentiment and the echo chambers, which have facilitated a fracturing along social, religious, and political lines across the world, youth diplomacy, in my mind, has never been more important. As a young generation, we have the unique freedom, flexibility, and the open-mindedness to chase our burgeoning passions. And this is certainly what I've experienced in IF. It's been so refreshing and motivating to meet other like-minded delegates who have all found their unique interest in different parts of Indonesia and Australia, and all of whom feel personal responsibility in strengthening this relationship. Youth diplomacy is such a meaningful way of combating cultural understandings and the unfortunate consequences of it. In instilling a mutual interest in both countries from a young age, young Australians and Indonesians are raised with a more substantive understanding of the challenges both countries face and a belief that they have the power to affect change. So I think that younger generations have access to broader networks through social media platforms that diplomats and other key decision makers are not as well versed in. And we also have a growing range of travel and study opportunities that are available to us. Additionally, I think that the way young people communicate with each other encourages sort of more open-mindedness and confidence amongst peers, which is critical in dismantling different perceptions of power and like hierarchy in both countries. So I think these are just a few of the benefits that youth diplomacy yields when it's invested in properly. And these benefits are sure to have a long-term impact as these connections grow in the future. From my experience, I think that COVID-19 has highlighted the importance of bilateral programs like IEP and Achievers in aiding this relationship. Youth diplomacy creates a sense of mutual understanding between young Australians and Indonesians. And in these unprecedented times, it has fostered a sense of comfort, in me at least, in knowing that the feelings of anxiety and unrest during the pandemic is shared by our counterparts. So I think that this common experience has established a foundation of friendship and cooperation with my peers that I hope will continue well into our professional and personal futures. And if this experience was more common in the lives of sort of young generations of both countries, I think that the future definitely has a place for a stronger and more resilient Australia-Indonesia friendship. So my recommendations would be that while we can always invest more into education and travel opportunities and programs like the New Colombo Plan, this is not always an immediate outcome. And so from a more informal sense, I guess, it would be critical to share information about Indonesia and Australia with your peers and with your family. Like Angi said, so much of our consumption of social media is very much the same, and it's a really great platform to be able to communicate and connect. So I think that if Indonesia is simply more present in Australian culture and vice versa through just talking about it and being more open to understanding the differences, I think that Australians will generally grow up to be more curious and willing to learn about Indonesia. Terima kasih banyak.
Terima kasih, Sharmila. Very interesting perspective as well. Thank you. Okay, now I'd like to invite the third youth representative, Nikomang Emayanti, Delegate of Indonesia for IAP 2019.
Okay, thank you very much, Mia, and all the participants in this youth forum today. My name is Erna. I'm the representative of Australia-Indonesia Youth Exchange Program 2019, or IAP 38 Indonesia. And as we know that the young generations have a great potential as agent of change and realizing their country's development in one of the ways through diplomatic practice. And as an alumni of Australia-Indonesia Youth Exchange Program, I believe that youth have a very big opportunity and role as national ambassadors in conducting diplomacy and various fields, especially in promoting the bilateral relations between Indonesia and Australia. And also as the youth of Indonesia, I believe that we can make a major contribution in strengthening bilateral cooperations between Indonesia and Australia, considering that Indonesia has historically had a very close relationship with Australia since Indonesia's independence on 17th August 1945. And Indonesia's diplomatic relations with Australia has established for 70 years, and it's proof that Indonesia and Australia will always be friendly countries that collaborate in various aspects, such as in geostrategic, geoeconomic, technology, ecological, social, cultural, health, and education. And one of the examples of the real contributions of the youth in strengthening bilateral relations between Indonesia and Australia is through Australia-Indonesia Youth Exchange Program that's sponsored by Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade Australia, or DFAT, and the Ministry of Youth and Sports Indonesia, or Kemenpora, and now it's entering its 39th year. And a total of 18 Indonesian youth and 18 Australian youth will carry out programs around 4 months filled with diplomatic activities such as cross-cultural understanding, homestay, community development, cultural performances such as dancing Salinan dance from Aceh province, Indonesia, and singing the country song, for the example, from Australia, and also the internship activities, counterparts, and exploring tourism destinations in both countries. And IF is very complex program and has had a tremendous impact on its alumni in terms of self-development, and it has a major impact in strengthening the creative relationship between Indonesia and Australia. But there are also challenges faced by the youth in terms of understanding the participating in diplomacy. Sometimes our young generations are afraid to hear about diplomacy, which is considered more directly towards politics and state affairs. But in fact, on the other hand, diplomacy can be done in simple ways, for example, through soft diplomacy by introducing and promoting the culture and values of both Indonesia and Australia, which can be done anywhere in today's era. And also, the recommendation that I can put forward is that I do hope, especially for the Indonesian government, can enhance the socializations related to the importance of the role of the Indonesian youth in diplomacy, either through real-door seminars or other activities in these pandemic situations. And so that our young generations more understand about the meaning of diplomacy and realizing the importance of their role in national buildings, especially in strengthening bilateral cooperations between Indonesia and Australia. And for the youth, both in Indonesia and Australia, let us be part of diplomatic actors such as participating in youth exchange program or joining youth organization like AYA and others, or the other platforms that can give positive contributions to ourselves and also to our own countries. That's all about my comment and recommendations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anna, for sharing your perspectives and ideas and some interesting recommendations as well. I'd like to invite Amy Hall, Delegate of Australia for IAP 2020, to deliver her comment and also recommendation.
Thank you, Mia. I believe that the key to youth diplomacy is centred around two pillars. Obviously, everyone's already mentioned education and openness. I think Australia and Indonesia are already quite lucky in that our physical proximity has gone a long way to build awareness of both countries. However, there's still quite a long way to go in strengthening our bilateral relationship. One of the key barriers in encouraging the role of youth in diplomacy is that there are often financial hurdles that prevent young people from looking to Indonesia for an in-depth cultural experience, and likewise prevent Indonesians from coming to Australia. Within Australia, there is also a need to encourage young people to broaden their perspective of Indonesia beyond just knowing colloquially Bali as a travel destination. In Australia, education has been recognised as a significant factor of public diplomacy and is Australia's third largest service export. international education utilises soft power to encourage a new wave of globalised citizens who are inquisitive, adaptive and invested in the well-being of other countries. The establishment of the original Colombo Plan demonstrates an early indicator of the significance of this, with 27 countries working together in the well-being of them. In 2020, Australia now has a variety of ways to increase and promote youth engagement in Australia through education, and a number of those programs have already been touched upon. In 2019, 515,000 international students began their studies in Australia, from vocational education all the way to postgrad studies. These students make Australia their home and significantly contribute to the fabric that makes Australia so unique. In 2019, there was only 16,000 Indonesian students studying in Australia in vocational and higher education providers. In contrast to this, only 52,000 Australian students participated in an international mobility program, and mostly were through a faculty-led study tour which lasted less than 4 weeks. In 2018, of those students who participated in an international mobility program, only 1,800 participated in one that went to Indonesia. Australia has a long way to go in promoting Indonesia as more than just a travel destination, but as a destination with an enriching cultural experience. My recommendation is to work on building a comprehensive understanding of Indonesia in Australia and to the youth of Australia, and to work on continuing to change the culture of education, exchange and overseas values to encourage young Australians to more easily go abroad for significant periods of time. The future of Australia and the Indonesian bilateral relations is dependent on young people of these countries. If we can encourage more Australians to become interested in Indonesia and give Australians the opportunity to experience a wider diversity of cultures so that they become change agents and active participants in securing our bilateral relations. Thanks.
Thank you, Amy. Terima kasih for your ideas and some recommendations as well. Next, I'd like to invite ASEAN Youth Ambassador 2019, Iqbal Darmawan, to deliver his thoughts and also perspectives. Iqbal, can you hear me? Iqbal? Iqbal, hi, sorry, I can't hear you. I can see you though. Not yet. Okay, let's proceed to the next youth representative, and then after that we are going to try to hear Iqbal again. Hopefully Iqbal can join us after this. I'd like to invite the delegate of Australia for IAP 2020, Callum Fitzgerald, to deliver your perspective and also comment. Callum, silakan.
Okay. Selamat siang semua dan Om Swastiastu. Thank you, Mia, for organizing such an incredible event, and everyone who's here listening in and learning a thing or two about youth engagement. Lots of things have already been covered, so I'll keep mine short. Everyone's speech was brilliant and insightful in their own way, and all of the recommendations now were some of them I was also thinking of. I do have a couple comments, and yeah, I'll keep it brief. But I think going along the lines of what I've been learning this year from many webinars that I've attended in my free time, and the recent IEP internship that's still going, is that when Indonesians and Australians get the opportunity to travel to different regions of Australia and different regions of Indonesia, they need to be able to come back, like Professor Greg Philly was saying, and have the opportunity to share their experiences and change the mindset of their family, their friends, and open up that dialogue to be had. Because I think like Australia, like Indonesia and Australia, the majority of the public, and this is to no fault of their own, are very unaware of the cultural differences, the culture of Australia, and the many, many different types of cultures found in Indonesia. And there's a lot of negative perspectives that have been, shared by the media through nationalist and religious organizations about each other's country that is quite false. And I think the youth, especially everyone today here and over the week, I've had the pleasure of meeting many interested, curious and intelligent Balinese students through classes who are really keen on improving their perception of Australia. And I think it does come down to us because we are not as biased, and we don't have, we need a new, fresh look at our relationship, I think is the most important thing, outside of the economic with Ayachipa and outside of the political spats that have been kind of tainting our relationship over the decades. And I think now with similar existential crises like COVID and climate change and, crazy political leaders that want to destroy relationships rather than build them up, I think each one of us here has a great responsibility to take what we learn from each other when we travel overseas and when we learn about each other's country and share that with our friends and family in a positive way, so that when eventually we end up in think tanks or social movements or political organizations in the near future, there's many other jobs everyone can end up in, that we are bringing a new voice and a new perspective on our relationship rather than one that has been historically pretty negative. And some of us might become teachers or professors or leaders in our universities, like Mia is and like many people here are, and studying each other's, like through scholarly work and through social work, studying each other's countries. I know, like Greg Feely, he is an avid researcher in Indonesia. There's a lot less, I think, Indonesian scholars from many renowned Indonesian universities who study solely on Australia. I think that needs to be increased too. And there needs to be a lot more financial support for Indonesian students as well as Australian students to travel and learn more broadly and more in depth, like everyone has said, rather than just the surface, beef boats in Bali or Australian very surface level cultural aspects. There needs to be a lot of in-depth and longer internships and in-country experiences. Like Emmy was saying, they're very short, a majority of them, and you're very lucky to receive them in the first place. So I think those numbers need to increase, and even if it's online or digital over the next couple of years, I hope that, there's more democratic sharing of this information, and we can all come together online, if that may be, to share each other's perspectives. And I think that's a really important way to go now. So those are a few recommendations and comments. Sorry for keeping it short. Thank you, Mia.
Thank you. Terima kasih, Callum, for recommendation and for some ideas and perspective. Let's try Iqbal.
Hello,
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
ASEAN Youth Ambassador at 2019.
All right. Thank you so much, Mia, for this opportunity, and thank you so much, everyone who has been sharing their great opinions and also perspective on Indonesia and Australia. collaboration and also bilateral relationship. And also I've been noticing that a lot of people here were the alumni of IAP, and although I've never been to IAP program before, but I've been working with IAP Jakarta and also IAP 2020. I think I've seen Sharmila yesterday in one of our event that has become the collaboration between IAP Jakarta and also IAP 2020. And so therefore, I'd like to also share my perspective on the diplomacy and also the bilateral relationship between Indonesia and also Australia youth, in today's climate. So in 2030, the population of youth worldwide is projected to rise to a solid 17%. And also with the vast technology development in this very digital era, youths worldwide are connected like never before. And the youths are also the core demographic in the using and developing innovative and groundbreaking, let's say, new technologies. We are also the game changers in global social issues and accelerators in the energy networks. However, it's quite unfortunate for youth to have a very little voice in many development programs. And however, and also, not only in development programs, but also negotiations and also most importantly in international and also domestic political decision making, despite the growing demographic and also economic significance that youths can offer to the government. And also as ASEAN Youth Ambassador for Indonesia, despite youth's minimum involvement in the current government's international and political decision making, I am amazed on how innovative and enthusiastic the youths across ASEAN and Australia in creating and building networking to discuss various world pressing issues, cultural understanding, and even facilitating activities that could strengthen the bond between the youths and across the countries. Speaking as also one of the Australia Indonesia Youth Association members myself, I realized how meaningful and purposeful the events are in AYA. On the other hand, I also believe that more youths needs to be exposed to such opportunities and information regarding youth networking, and also between Indonesia and Australia. Hence, there will be more youths involved in the circle of diplomacy. Three things that I can share and also, try to pinpoint to leverage the youth contributions in cooperation between Indonesia and Australia. So number one is, I would say, participate in Indonesia and Australia youth programs. Many programs will allow youth in Indonesia and Australia to engage and widen their networking amongst the youth. One of them is IAP, just like everyone or a lot of people here have been experienced before, which has become the annual program by the Ministry of Youth and Sports for Indonesia to strengthen the relationship between youths in Indonesia and Australia through a social and cultural exchange program. Other great opportunities such as Achichis and Australia Awards Scholarship also provide a different experience in creating harmony between Indonesia and Australia as well. And second one, I would like to also suggest to take part in Australia and Indonesia Youth Dialogue, as many issues are raising, especially during the pandemic. Discussion among youth leaders and aspiring social activists need to be held. This dialogue will unlock more perspective and share best practices of what they have done with the current situation. So not only that we are, solving the, social issues, but we also try to create that sort of networking between the youths, and therefore we will have a better bond and stronger bond between Indonesia and Australia. And I think lastly, I would like to also mention to be the member of Australia and Indonesia Youth Association, as Anggi have mentioned before, that we have a lot of chapters in Australia as well as in Indonesia. I think being a youth association members will give the youths a platform to work together on a collaboration project with Australian youths. One of them that have been doing with Ayah Jakarta is becoming flex facilitators, which come in collaboration between two facilitators, one from Indonesia and one from Australia, to discuss various topics and to build the understanding among the youth between Indonesia and also Australian youth. With all of the suggestion, both Australia and Indonesia government needs to also support and facilitate better in and empower young generation, and also to empower the younger generation spirit. Therefore, there are also some recommendation that I would give to our government to support our proposal. First is to create a strategic collaboration between youth in facilitating advocacy for different causes such as health, education, peace, and also environment. Second, I also believe that initiating more incubator programs and events for Indonesia and Australia entrepreneurs, especially to develop their business ideas based on specific cause, could also create that different bondings and experience between Indonesia and Australia youth collaboration. And lastly, strengthening the youth's connection and peace understanding by exchanging in-country's experience through interfaith or many cultural programs. Both suggestion for youths, recommendation for the governments also come to one big goal, which is actually strengthening the bilateral relationship between Indonesia and Australia through youth diplomacy. Therefore, youth must be allowed to engage with international institutions and initiatives, contributed ideas to resolve global issues, promote mutual understanding, and ultimately strengthen the connection between the Indonesia and Australia to begin with. And I think this is also evident that if youth step up to mobilize their nation's potential, to move forward in the right direction, they can significantly impact to the nation's transformation and also, wider to the international arena. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Iqbal. Very interesting and also very comprehensive recommendations, actually. Thank you for joining us today. Now it's time for a Q&A session. I'd like to invite everyone, all participants, to ask questions to all the speakers, 4 speakers, or to the 6 youth representatives. They can answer your questions. Untuk semua mahasiswa dan juga peserta yang ikut, kita akan memasuki sesi tanya jawab. Silakan yang memiliki pertanyaan bisa diketik di kolom chat di Google Meet ini, ataupun yang mengikuti via live streaming di YouTube, silakan untuk mengetik dan mengirimkan pertanyaannya. I actually have some questions already on YouTube chat, so I'm going to just deliver these questions to all the speakers, and if there are some comments or response from the youth representatives, you guys can also join us and also share your perspective. The first question is to Pak Abri. Ada pertanyaan untuk Pak Abri from Putri. My name is Putri. I have a question to Pak Abri. How to measure the real success of post-program activities? Because Pak Abri earlier mentioned the importance of post-program activities, how to actually measure that, is that post-program activity actually successful, and then can also reflect on the success of the program itself. That's for Pak Abri. And a question to Anggi Timur from Norman. For Anggi, there are some schools and universities in Australia teach Bahasa Indonesia. Why do Australians learn Bahasa Indonesia? And that's actually related to the question from Okta. Hi, I'm Okta. My question is, when Indonesian language is made as one of the subjects in schools and also taught at several universities in Australia, how do Australian students react to Indonesian language? And are they interested in learning Indonesian language? This can also be answered by Callum or Shamila or Annie as well. And also question to Ayuade from Vincentius Julio. Question to Ms. Ayuade about contributing to youth diplomacy on the 4-month program, and especially to the point of community development program. What is the real implementation of that community development program, and what do we get from this point of the program, from a specific from community development program? And also question from Edrida Pulungan. actually Secretary General House of Regional Representative of Republic of Indonesia, also IAP 2006. Bapak Edrida Pulungan, thank you so much for joining us today. The questions I think is for everyone, all speakers and also all youth representatives. Do we have a program to promote peace and solution about COVID-19 pandemic and also the problem of climate change? What do you guys think about this need of a program to promote peace and solution about COVID-19, also climate change? I'd like to give the first opportunity to Pak Abri to answer the questions from Putri about the measure. How do we measure the real success of a post-program activity?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Putri, for the question. I think this is a very interesting question. As we know, the first time we recruit the participants of international youth exchange in Indonesia, everyone should, make a proposal of the PPA after the program. That's written in our letter from the Ministry of Youth and Sport to the provincial government. Yeah, we know that not all of the provincial government, follow up that one. So maybe not all of the participants, even they don't have the a pledge or promise to do the PPA after match. Yeah, they're still going to Jakarta to be participants. It's depend on I think it's depend on the, provincial government. And we have to, remind, that every participant should remember and what to do after the program, like what the candidate before the program they already, selected. And the one who has to be selected is the one who has finished or have a program for the post-program activities, have a plan for that. So if you are asking about how to measure that, when the activities match with what they do, I mean, the planning of the participant at the program, they can do the post-program activities, going to be, that's only the way. And I will inform to all of participants that last week we have a meeting about the youth exchange program. There is a recommendation also in that meeting that we have to prepare. I mean, Ministry of Youth and Sport and for this exchange program, we need to prepare about the complete guideline for the post-program activities. So next time there's no denial gain for doing this PPA for the next time. I think that's enough. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
And also for answer from Edrida Pulungan, right? Yeah. I will answer that every program actually. Every exchange program, we can, make or arrive the theme of that. Yeah, the theme of what Edrida Pulungan asking us now. So we can make it like a customized program. Yeah, to make the theme of like Edrida Pulungan said last night. I think that's my opinion. Yeah, maybe next time we can also propose the theme of the youth exchange program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Abri, for your answer. Ibu Edrida Pulungan, thank you for joining us. That's also an answer from Pak Abri related to how to measure the real impact of the post-program activities and also about the program to promote peace and solution about COVID-19 and climate change. Thank you very much. I'd like to proceed to Anggi. Anggi, questions about schools and universities in Australia that teach Bahasa Indonesia.
So I feel like a better question is why not? Like why doesn't every school teach Indonesian? In Australia, Indonesia is our closest neighbor, and I think that we need to do more to acknowledge that. And I think it should be almost a second language to Australians, that they know a little bit of Indonesian. If you see in like European countries, like there are a lot of like people in United Kingdom know French. Even in Canada, their second language is French. And around Europe, people will know Italian who live nearby there. And I don't see why Australia can't be the same in that Indonesian language is not part of the normal school curriculum. Unfortunately, the interest in regards to our first question, the reaction to Indonesian is not as good as we want it to be, which is why it is sort of our duty as the youth to entice people to show why it is such a easy compared to other languages and desirable language to learn, especially compared to more popular languages like French, Italian, German, Korean. And it has a lot of benefits as an Australian to learn Indonesian as a language. It's the same script in terms of learning grammar and that sort of thing. It's much easier even than English. And like I said before, it brings a lot of opportunities for young people to learn Indonesian. Most of the Australians that I meet who learn Indonesian, they actually it's like a happy accident that they fall upon it because they see that it is quite an easy language to pick up. And I just want more people to know that it is a very desirable language and know the benefits of that.
Thank you. Callum and Sharmila, would you like to add something related to this opportunity for Australians or the interest of Australians to learn Bahasa Indonesia?
Yeah, I think from my experience, because I only started learning it in university, I learned it because I'm from Singapore, so I sort of grew up around like Malay and stuff, and I think I had a personal interest in learning it. But from my experience, most of my classmates learned it because they had learned it in high school, and so they were just continuing that. So I think it's harder still to sort of instill that curiosity in people when they're older. And when you're at university, like Angi said, there's like French and German and people is more drawn to those languages. So I think actually starting it from a younger age when you like actually having the opportunity to learn it. I didn't have Indonesian offered as a language in my high school. So I think having that just like more widespread would be really beneficial because then people are obviously more inclined to keep learning it as opposed to when you're in university and you have so many exciting languages to pick from, not that many people will actually pick Indonesian. So yeah, just going off what Angi said.
Hello.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I read a story recently about a school on the Central Coast, East Coast of Australia, who's the first school in Australia to be a bilingual school, and their second language is Indonesian. And they had a couple of Indonesian ambassadors visit the school. It's a middle school, so primary aged kids who grow up, fairly fluent, semi-fluent by the time they reach high school. And that's a fantastic part of youth diplomacy because the students are exposed to many other parts of Indonesia, politics and ambassadors visiting and cultural performances, which are all very important for the growth of understanding another country. And I hope that's the case with more schools around Australia, even though many of, like universities, are facing budget cuts, which are threatening to language departments all across Australian universities. So, yeah, it's a lot to do with money, but also interest. So I think Australian students also have to campaign, the youth, especially Pemuda and Mahasiswa, have to really campaign hard for increasing language education, especially of Southeast Asian and most importantly, Indonesian languages. Not just maybe Bahasa, but, Javanese or Papuan or Kalimantan, any language they can. It's access to teachers as well and quality teachers. Yeah, I hope the case is that we have more bilingual schools, and we see the importance in learning our neighbours' language, just like both the previous speakers said. Yeah.
Thank you. Any thoughts or comments? Amy, are you still here?
I think she's left.
Okay, that's fine. Angie, I still have a question about the program to promote peace and solution about COVID-19 and also climate change. Do you see that young people need to have some sort of innovation, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic?
Luckily, Australia has been very good in terms of the COVID pandemic. I guess something that maybe the youth in Indonesia can copy from Australia is promoting the fact that we have to deal with restrictions and we have to sort of not reduce the spread of the virus. And I think the best way to do that is through social media. I mean, youth have the biggest power online. We've seen in events all over the world that have been influenced through social media, through the spread of social media. And that doesn't mean just promoting, but also taking out the misinformation that does spread online in terms of COVID, which does happen a lot in Indonesia as well. I think we underestimate how much power the youth have in terms of changing things that happen around the world. We need to recognize that although we have limited resources, we actually are very good at using them and exploiting that. We aren't as committed to, we're not settled down, a lot of us aren't settled down in jobs yet. We have more time to go online and do these things, and we should be exploiting.
Thank you. Interesting. The power of social media, the power of youth can do through social media. Interesting, Angie. Thank you. And now I'd like to give the opportunity to Ayu Ade about the real implementation of like community development program and what do we get on this point of the program?
Okay, thank you. The question was from Vincent, if I'm not mistaken. Thank you, Vincent, for the question. So the community development program is not necessarily done for 4 full months. It's just it's the IEP community development program. We do it in a rural place in Indonesia. I was in South. I think West Kalimantan in Sambas. So there are a lot of programs for our community development, but the 3 most highlighted programs during our rural phase in Sambas, West Kalimantan, is we built library for the society in Lumbang. Before the program, the rate of reading interest of the children in Lumbang is very low. So we built this community library in one of the leader of the society's house in Lumbang, and we promote the place not only for the children as well, but as well for the adult people in the village to increase their interest in reading. Trust me, without a good diplomacy and communication skill, this cannot be done because we have to get through it by talking to the stakeholders and leader of the village to realize this program. We also do water management system in the village because in Sambas, the water quality was not that good as what we have in our house. So we have to be involved with higher stakeholder to do this because we need certain purifier and then medicine to create a better water quality for the people in Lumbang society. And last one is a waste management system. by creating communal waste place in Lumbang. So before, the people in the community in the village used to burn their waste, buried their waste in the solid or in the ground, which is not healthy at all. So we create this kind of communal water place and manage to get a certain car picking system, in which without a good diplomacy and communication system, this impossible to be done, because we have to talk with the government to realize this program, so that the people will be more aware where to place their waste, instead of burning them or bury it in the ground. And then what most difficult is to make the people be familiar with the system in 3 or 4 weeks, because they've been burning and buried their waste for years, and that's the tradition that they used to. And now we, as a youth of IEP, come to the village and try to introduce the new system. It's so hard at the beginning, but again, with a good soft diplomacy skill, it is very helpful also. And what most interesting is that the system is still going on until today. It's been 5 years, and we the 2015 delegates are very proud, because the people in Lumbang is still holding to this new tradition, because we connected through social media, and we can see through their social media that the system is still going on, and it being such a good impact to the, not only for the Australian and Indonesian participant, but for specific village society in Lumbang, West Kalimantan themselves.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very interesting. Wow, I like so many programs, and those are very interesting actually, and it's like showing the real implementation of that community development program. Thank you for sharing with us, Ayuade. I'd like to hear from Clara and also from Iqbal about the questions from Ibu Edrida Pulungan. Program to promote peace and solution about COVID-19 and also climate change from the perspective of young people. Iqbal.
Okay, so basically there are many programs that currently the Youth Network from ASEAN and Indonesia is doing, and one of them is actually also from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We have the ASEAN and Indonesia Interfaith program, which actually focusing not only for the like the understanding upon religion, but I think right now, because since we are in the COVID-19, we are also talking about how are we going to tackle that situation down, and what can we do to really be able to survive in these situations, and not that we are going to take be a part in the situation, but more to collaborate further in the future. But aside from that, when I was still active back then before the COVID-19, after I was chosen an ASEAN Youth Ambassador, I had a program called the ASEAN Shanti, where actually I went to a lot of different part of Indonesia to really promote and teach about ASEAN understanding, and also the importance of healthy lifestyle, but at the same time also a good sanitation, and also a better environment for those people. I think, as what Ayuade also mentioned before, I think that particular area, especially those living in rural areas, are like prone to environmental problems, and also are very poor in sanitation. So one of the programs that we created was giving the education for the people about the importance of having a good sanitation. So we're actually working along with the local governments to build this water sanitations to replace the old one, so that they could have a better water, and also sanitation to promote their better life, and also better health as well. So I think those programs actually could be found online with a lot of youth networkings that is available now. One of them is y.network that is available in Instagram. So they have this some sort of youth collaboration project where they could share the best practices and also share like projects that they have been running, so that you can also take parts and also participate in the projects. And another maybe advice or way to actually find about those informations and also platform is by taking to the government social media, because a lot of them are also sharing about programs to promote about this sort of situation like COVID-19, and also understanding upon different social issues and collaboration between the youths.
Thank you for sharing, Iqbal. Clara.
I think we are on the same line that online and virtual kind of thing is gonna be a good solution to keep the connection between other youth in other countries in other region of Indonesia. The program that I think we can do it right now to promote peace as well as the climate change in this kind of COVID-19 issue. The first one, practically, I think we should have more interfaith dialogue with other people, other youth people in Indonesia and other outside the countries, because I think that is the best way that we can do to promote peace more to the young people, because the interfaith dialogues is kind of the important aspect that we can do right now. And that is also the program that I am running right now with the Norwegian Foundation about the interfaith project, because we both have the same ideas that how to promote the peace is by talking to each other who have a different belief and different way to seeing and different perspective to seeing the world and how the human being live. I think that we can start doing right now virtually, like making a more online dialogue with to see how actually the perspective between the young people in other country, in other region, in Asia, about what they are currently facing right now, the social issues, about the social problems. And we can, from that kind of the action, I think we can have, in the end, we have the same values that we can share together, and we can make a recommendation with those kind of the problems. And the second one is about the climate change. I think that is a more, a lot of young people now making an online virtual campaign about the climate change, because that is the easiest way that young people can do right now in the midst of the pandemic of COVID-19. The school strike and then the petition through the change.org and make some kind of the online poster. I think that is the good power from the young people can do right now to keep the awareness from the people about the issues in climate change and issues in the using of plastic. And practically what we can do also is making a good storytelling. Storytelling is not only about the children, but it's also the way to telling the people, the adults, about the social issue or problem that we're facing right now. Yeah, I think that is those kind of thing that I can recommend, and also I can suggest to all of us. So in the future, we have a good collaboration then after this program. So we're still productive in the midst of COVID-19, and then we have the same ideas. We can share value, and also we can share our perspective to make the world become better. Thank you.
Thank you. Terima kasih. Thank you, Clara. Very interesting point of view and also interesting ideas as well. Thank you guys so much for attending this virtual youth forum. Really appreciate that. Let us all take pictures together. I'd like to encourage everyone to turn on your video camera so we can all take pictures. All my students, all of the participants, please turn on your camera. We are going to take a group photo. While waiting for everyone to turn on their camera, I'd like Pak Abri to give sort of closing statement or motivation to young people here to close our session. Sorry Pak, you masih di mute Pak, mic-nya.
Yeah. I think we all agree that youth is future leaders. So youth has many perspectives for the future. So that's why we need to, learn more about what next we have to do for the next. So that's why, in our perspective, perspective of Ministry of Youth and Sport, we have to, select a capability of the youth that able to join the program clearly. So now we, create many criteria for the program to select the youth that are able to join many program of youth in the future. So for this opportunity to join the virtual youth forum, I think this is a very useful and good forum for us to give a contribution for the future diplomacy of the youth. I think that's my closing statement, and thank you very much for everyone who joining this forum. And hopefully there are another future forum again, not only from Denpasar. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for your support, Pak Abri. Terima kasih atas dukungannya. Thank you so much for everyone as well. I'd like to invite everyone to please turn on your camera right now, so we can all take a group picture. Untuk semua mahasiswa dan juga semua peserta, mohon bisa mengaktifkan kameranya masing-masing. Kita akan lanjutkan dengan sesi foto bersama. Saya juga sudah share link untuk sertifikat dan juga presensi kehadiran. Silakan bisa diisi di link tersebut. Okay, we're still waiting for everyone to turn on the camera so we can take a group picture together. Okay. Baik, terima kasih. Saya akan mulai untuk take fotonya. 3, 2, 1. Sekali lagi. Let's more people. Okay. Tiga, dua, satu. One more. Mohon izin Pak Abri freestyle ya. Boleh gaya bebas sekarang semua mahasiswa. Okay, let's try again. 1, 2, cheers, Bali. Cool, perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone. Terima kasih banyak semuanya atas supportnya dan kehadirannya. I thank, of course, Pak Abri. Thank you, Anggi. Thank you very much, Ayu Ade. Thank you, Professor Greg, as well. Thank you to 6 selected youth representative, Iqbal, Callum, Clara, Sharmila, Amy, and also Erna. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and perspective with all of us. Thank you to all participants. I have checked, and currently we have actually 300, more than 300 participants actually joining us on Google Meet and also on YouTube. As a moderator, I'd like to highlight that all of the speakers and also participants have asked questions during the Q&A session. All of you have given very interesting recommendations. And after this, Sharmila and also Callum and I, since you are still in the internship program of IAP at Undiknas, are going to compile all the recommendation and going to create this kind of a written recommendation that we are going to share with everyone. So we are going to send the recommendation to Anggi as well, to Iqbal, to Clara, to Ayu Ade, to everyone, to Undiknas, and also to stakeholders such as government and also the ministry, in this case is Kemenpora, to Pak Abri, to see the result of this virtual youth forum in the format of written recommendation. Thank you so much for attending this event, and I hope we can all see each other again, maybe virtually, maybe face-to-face in Bali or in Australia. looking forward to have this kind of collaboration again in the future. Thank you to the head of Untitled Study Center, Ibu Dr. Gungtini Gorda, for supporting this event as well. And thank you to the Embassy of Indonesia in Canberra. Thank you so much, everyone. If you want to see the picture of all of us, we're going to upload to Instagram story on the account of Pusat Studi Undiknas. Thank you. I'm Mia. Once again, I thank you all and enjoy the rest of your day. And we'll see each other again in the next event. Bye. Thank you. Om Santi, 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 Om.